I'm Diane Dobitz, and I'm serving as worship associate this morning alongside our worship leader, Susan Chambers. Our minister, Reverend Diana McLean, will be back in the pulpit on February 18th. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Mankato, all of you, whether joining us in person or on Zoom. You're welcome in this time that we make sacred together. We extend an especially warm welcome to you if this is your first time here. We know and appreciate that it can be difficult to cross the threshold of a new church for the first time, whether in person or online. We humbly acknowledge that before European colonization, the Dakota peoples were stewards of the land on which our fellowship building sits. They teach us that the land does not belong to any of us, though it holds the history of our conflicts and of our attempts at reconciliation. And we commit to an ongoing and intentional journey of humble connection with Indigenous peoples, characterized by understanding our shared history, accepting responsibility for restoration, and building relationships in the here and now. Thus, we seek to be good relatives. Sunday morning is a team effort, and I'm grateful to all who are willing to serve. Thank you to today's pianist, Nancy Cramblett, Director of Faith Development, Macy Forsyth, who will share a story in worship, and Daniel Stedman, who will go with her to Children's Chapel. Nursery care is provided by nursery staff members Alexander Sensawa and Lyndon Anthony. Thanks to the sound assistant Joe Reineman and worship tech Kat Clements. Thanks to Dennis Cramblett for taking care of our hearing assistants, and thanks to the greeters Diane Langland and Deanne Nelson. If you are new to the fellowship, we are grateful that you are expanding the we who is us. And if you are attending by Zoom today, you are welcome to stay after the service to visit together. For those attending in person, we have coffee and refreshments in the fellowship hall, thanks to Nancy Blethen, Sue Wilchin, and Ruthie Gempler. We are always in need of more people to take turns in these roles that make Sunday mornings possible. We're especially in need of more people to take turns assisting Kat with sound during worship, but there are many other opportunities as well. There's a clipboard on the hutch in the entryway for you to sign up, and you can also use Sign Up Genius through our website. Oh, okay, go ahead.
There is one announcement this morning, and that is that our lunch bunch on the first Saturday of every month can be reinstated now because the restaurant in Madelia has now reopened. So we're looking forward to meeting everybody again there.
Now together, let us kindle a flame symbolizing our co-creation of sacred space at home and in this place made sacred by years of love. As we do, please write in the chat that a chalice is lit on your street. Please read with me from the pew cards. We are a welcoming people of diverse beliefs who commit to nourish the spirit, broaden the mind, nurture the earth, and build community. May this flame we kindle remind us to strive today and every day to love beyond belief.
I am a lawyer. And lawyers love to play with words. So one of the first things I like to do is check out definitions of words we often use without exploring the word in any depth. Our theme for the month of February is justice and equity. And the Legal Information Institute out of Cornell Law School defines justice this way. Justice is the ethical, philosophical idea that people are to be treated impartially, fairly, properly, and reasonably by the law and by arbiters of the law. That laws are to ensure that no harm befalls another, and that where harm is alleged, a remedial action is taken. Both the accuser and the accused receive a morally right consequence merited by their action. They have a second definition, that justice is a legal structure or a system that's designed to judge in a general sense who should be accorded a benefit or burden when the law is applied to that person's factual circumstance. And of course, we call our judges justice. It's a title conferred on them in both the U.S. Supreme Court, the federal courts, the state courts, and our district courts. I was sworn in as a Minnesota attorney in April of 1979, so I've practiced law for over 45 years. And the oath I took is incorporated in our laws, the Minnesota laws. You do swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and that of the state of Minnesota, and will conduct yourself as an attorney and counselor at law in an upright and courteous manner, to the best of your learning and ability, with all good fidelity, as well to the court as to the client, and that you will use no falsehood or deceit, nor delay any person's cause for lucre or malice. And I say I do to that. Most of my law practice was focused on employment and family law. And as I hit the 1990s into 2000, I began to become more and more intensely involved in alternative dispute resolution, that is, mediation, early neutral evaluation, and those types of programs that kept people out of the courts. I also served as a judicial officer for 5 years, from 2011 to 2016, for the 5th Judicial District, which goes from the South Dakota border to the South Dakota border and the Iowa border, and then also back to Mankato. It includes Blue Earth County. My official title was Family Court Referee, although occasionally they had me doing lots of other things, probate, small claims actions, and other matters because of a shortage of judges. But mostly I handled family law matters, and that was mostly in Mankato, although I went to Worthington 1 day a week for over a year trying to help them with a backlog of cases. Family law includes custody, parenting time, divorce, paternity, adoption, domestic violence cases, both harassment restraining orders and order for protections. I also did child in need of protective services. Those are the CHIPS type of petitions where a family is in danger of losing their children. And I facilitated the family drug court for parents who were in danger because of chemical dependency issues in keeping their children. During those 5 years, I rarely did any criminal cases, an occasional bail hearing. But in the 1980s, I was a prosecutor for Blue Earth County, in the Blue Earth County Attorney's Office. And I was in court almost daily during that time and in front of juries frequently. And I know there were times in social settings where I never told anyone I was an attorney, because attorneys have a bad reputation sometimes. TV and movies have depicted them as ruthless and mostly without ethics. Don't know how many times I heard through my career, "I hope my attorney is a pit bull." It's one of the reasons why I can't stand to watch most of those programs. I wince at the ethical violations I hear, and I'm not entertained by the false depictions I see. And that's not been my experience in all my years working with the justice field. Collaboration, courtesy, respect is what I was taught and tried to practice. I have little in common with Judge Judy. The tools that are all important for me in helping clients or in assisting individuals are those of courtesy and respect. Just this month, the new president of the Minnesota State Bar Association, Paul M. Floyd, discussed better lawyering. He categorized it as telling us to be the nice lawyer rather than the nasty lawyer. He notes there are numerous advantages to being known as the nice lawyer: better health, more lasting friendships, greater financial success, but most importantly, such respect and collaboration leads to more positive results. And he notes that the really nice lawyers finish first. I feel my career has let me finish near the top of the pack rather than behind. And Khalil Gibran's words are etched into my philosophical beliefs about justice and equity. I know we think of him as a Lebanese Arabic person born at the turn of the last century, but he was born in Lebanon in the late 1800s, but he immigrated to the United States when he was 2 years old. He did return to Lebanon for some of his education at age 15, but he came back to the U.S. again, where he began his writings. So his ideas are not just Arabic, but American. He was shaped by what he saw in the United States, and as was I. His philosophy is one I ascribe to. I try my best to serve the people and to uphold the laws. And yet, at times, I was very aware that the law did not always treat everyone the same. And again, I flip back to Gibran and another prose poem where he discussed laws. You delight in laying down laws, yet you delight more in breaking them. Like children playing by the ocean who build sand towers with constancy and then destroy them with laughter. But while you build your sand towers, the ocean brings more sand to the shore. And when you destroy them, the ocean laughs with you. Verily, the ocean laughs always with the innocent. But what of those to whom life is not an ocean, and man-made laws are not sand towers, but to whom life is a rock, and the law a chisel with which they would carve in it their own likeness? What of the cripple who hates dancers? What of the ox who loves his yoke and deems the elk and deer of the forest stray and vagrant things? What of the old serpent who cannot shed his skin and calls all others nakeless, naked and shameless? And of him who comes early to the wedding feast and when overfed and tired goes his way saying that all feasts are violation and all feasters lawbreakers? What shall I say of these, save that they too stand in the sunlight, but with their backs to the sun? They see only their shadows, and their shadows are their laws. And what is the sun to them but a caster of shadows. I think Gibran is telling us to step into the sunlight. I think he's telling us to oppose the unjust imposition of laws when necessary. Keebler-Diggs makes that same comment when he talks about George Floyd. We must change what does not work in the system of justice. And that's a slow process. But keeping the goals out in front of us helps us to make compassion be the number one tool for balancing out the edicts of the law and making sure we stand in the sunlight in the right direction. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm and promote 7 principles, and our second principle is our theme for this month: justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Both as an attorney advocating for one side, as a judicial officer about to make a decision between 2 differing parties, and as a neutral attempting to help parties make their own decision and avoid the court deciding for them, I try my best to keep compassion at the forefront. I fail from time to time, but it's my aspiration to be as compassionate as I can. Our court system serves to interpret our laws in a fair manner, and for the most part, I think it does a good job. But it is as strong as its weakest link. I'm a firm believer in providing services for those who cannot afford to pay for such assistance. As a part of our aspirational goals, lawyers were asked to provide so many hours each year of pro bono or low bono services, that is, for free or very low price. And I have done that for the full 45 years, and now that is a part of the rules, that every attorney shall do that. This is because our legal system does not always succeed in meeting the needs of all of those who are coming in front of the courts. The Minnesota Judicial Branch has 6 core goals: access to justice, timeliness, integrity and accountability, excellence, fairness and equity, and a quality court workplace environment. And I would say that the workplace environment is of high quality. I would say during my 5 years, I often was walking the back hallways, heading towards my courtroom, thinking how much I loved what I was doing. It was a challenge every day and exciting. But there are problems in the system with providing access of justice to all, especially in a timely fashion and with fairness and equity. In our judicial system, criminals get an attorney, and if they're at poverty level, they're provided with free services through the public defender program. And over in the media and the TV, we hear you have a right to an attorney. But that's not true in all other matters, civil, which includes all the family cases. There is no right to an attorney. People would often come to my courtroom asking for a lawyer. They just did not understand the process. And I would have to explain that there's no lawyer provided by our legal system. When I began practicing law in '79, you could file a custody matter for around $35. Decades later, because of many things happening with budget cuts and other increased costs, the filing fee sits around $345. And family law matters are much more complicated today, as many now choose not to marry. The breakup of a relationship used to be able to be handled in one divorce action that managed everything, but now each of those areas, each issue has to be filed separately. So if you are dealing with a house, personal property, custody, child support, Each is a separate filing and a separate filing fee. And those court fees continue to go up. And so have the requests from those who could not afford them. They request a waiver of those fees. That is called informa pauperis petition. And you have to be at poverty level, but we allowed many informa pauperis, probably a third. I don't have a statistic on that, but I was very aware of the financial differences in the people that were appearing in front of me. We often read petitions for those that were asking for a waiver and asking us to sign approval for those waivers, and sometimes whole families, a single parent, 2 or 3 children, were trying to get by on less than $500 a month, way below the poverty line. So we would waive that filing fee, and often did, but in addition, they weren't able to afford any type of representation. Nearly half of those coming to court on civil matters now appear on their own. They don't always fully understand the laws or the workings of our justice system. They just hope the court will tell them what to do. And that isn't the role of the judge. The judge is to be neutral and to interpret the laws. So the judicial branch did respond to this growing population of self-represented individuals because they slowed down the whole system as well. In the early 2000s, the system set up a self-help website with forms and instructions on what to do when they go to court. The papers are cumbersome because they try to anticipate the nearly impossible task of thinking of all the possible outcomes that might occur and trying to address each of those. Family law matters are complicated, and all other civil issues are complicated, and some people have troubles with those type of written instructions. So over the years, the courts have taken another step to further assist people in need by conducting self-help clinics. In the 5th Judicial District, which I've already described in our area, there were 24 self-help clinics with utilizing volunteer attorneys and coordinators to assist these people on a myriad of civil matters. The 5th Judicial District utilized 16 volunteer attorneys in those clinics last year. In addition, the 2 drug courts have occasional self-help clinics where they help people who are in front of them and doing that. Major organizations who assist those in need, like CADA, work with harassment restraining orders or order for protections in domestic violence cases, and they use volunteers to help with filling out those petitions. And then Southern Minnesota Regional Legal Services provides free, high-quality legal help to low-income people in critical civil matters. They've been doing that for 113 years, helping individuals and families secure and protect basic needs, maintaining freedom from hunger, homelessness, sickness, and abuse. They do this, they say in their website, because justice matters. SMIRLS serves 33 counties of southern Minnesota, including the Twin Cities East and South Metro. And they also serve agriculture workers throughout Minnesota and North Dakota, and the need is more than they can handle. So they also have a volunteer attorney program. They utilize volunteers to take additional cases in areas staff attorneys practice, mostly in housing and family. And they find volunteers to take cases that staff attorneys don't have expertise in, such as probate, guardianships, real estate. That program also interacts with law students, as do the self-help clinics, undergraduates or corporate or paralegal volunteers. They hold clinics for pro se, meaning self-represented, and unbundled services. They administer service and filing of complicated pro se cases such as criminal expungement which has been a big hot issue lately because of the changes in the marijuana laws, and that those criminal charges or convictions getting in the way of people getting loans or able to do housing. There are volunteers who work on full representation cases. There were 99 volunteer attorneys in 22, and more than 1,500 hours donated to assist clients. Over 30 criminal records were expunged, the majority in rural counties. They had in-person clinics in all 3 service regions. Their case numbers doubled at the 2 Metro walk-in clinics and the 2 housing clinics. They partner with many different organizations, the Minnesota Justice Foundation, Mitchell Hamlin Law School, St. Thomas Law School, and Winona State University. In that report of 22, they reported that Smurls opened 11,325 new cases, which was a 14% increase over the previous year. And the number of cases closed was up about 16%. Housing saw the largest increase, 28% over the previous year. And the Education Legal Advocacy Project, which is those with special needs in the education area, saw an increase in cases of 25%. Both of those increases they felt was directly related to the long-term impacts of COVID, remote learning, and some of those issues. So that gets us to COVID. When that shutdown came along, things grew harder and murkier. The needs grew greater. And for a while, the whole system seemed in jeopardy of collapse. The first thing that the shutdown did was cause a huge blockage in criminal cases. And now in 2024, we are finally readjusting to that. The court system is still working to eliminate that backlog. And the 5th District has done pretty well. At the end of 23, 13 of our 15 counties had reduced their pending major criminal cases to or below pre-pandemic levels. To further reduce the backlog in the remaining counties, the 5th District is planning to host several in-person case resolution events. I consider that another self-help clinic. They said conducting more hearings in person will also give attorneys opportunity to meet and have meaningful conversations with clients sooner. And that's important because there aren't many cases, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, that are being held in person anymore. Our filings continue to go up. Major criminal filings in 23 were 63,272. Major civil had 31,498 filings. Major probate had 17,455. And major family, which is done separate from all the other civil, had 34,991 filings. Juvenile had another 21,000, and minor civil, which includes small claims courts, so this number is huge, 109,443. And minor criminal, which includes parking, again, large numbers, 794,979 filings. So total court filings in 2023 were 1,072,746. I think you can see the problem for the court system working to respond in a timely fashion. The time in civil matters from start to finish continues to get longer. The criminal is back to about the COVID stages, which isn't always the best measurement, but at least it's a measurement that is showing we're getting rid of the backlog. When I was on the bench from 2011 to 16, a family law case finished from start to ending in about 5 months. I don't have the most recent statistics, but just hearing from people in the system and talking to them, it appears that most cases now in the family law area are taking about a year to a year and a half. Alternative dispute resolution processes, such as early neutral evaluation in family matters, attempts to help families avoid those long waits and the costs of attending court by helping them come to their own decision early in the process, a much faster way. The teams that are used for that provide this service at a low bono rate. It's a flat fee, sometimes offered for as little as $50 for the 4-hour process. UUFM members have provided services in this area. Teams consist of a man and a woman, one of the team members having a family law legal expertise, and one team member having child development expertise by their work as a guardian ad litem, a psychologist, or an educational specialist. Recently departed Jane Shostag was a team member. Gail Finley and Henry Panovich are team members, and I serve as a legal team member. Right now at the courthouse in the 5th Judicial District, the only in-person hearings are jury trials, and most of these are criminal. Every other type of hearing is now being conducted virtually, and again, there's a barrier there for those who can't afford computers or the internet, and they are out there. Those who are fortunate enough to have hired an attorney go to the lawyer's office for their access. But those who can't afford an attorney have to figure out how to use their phones to Zoom, or find somewhere that has a computer, like a library or a coffee shop, not an area that offers much privacy. Equal access becomes problematic. I don't want to paint a completely bleak picture of this need, but the need is real. I want to create an awareness of the work that is being done by well-intentioned players in the system, and to make you aware that there are opportunities to help people through this system. There's real satisfaction in volunteering time and providing expertise to parties confronted with complex matters and in a system that they may never have faced before. If you have child development skills and are willing to do the 2-day training and do the other things necessary to become accredited, you could become an E&E team member. You can also contact the 5th Judicial District Coordinator, the one who runs the self-help clinics for both the drug courts and for those trying to use the papers for self-help. You could offer your services of typing petitions. There's a real need for that help, and helping them fill out the forms. You could volunteer at Smurls or CADA in the same way. You could go on a nonprofit board of some of these fine organizations and help set future goals and fundraise to help provide more assistance. The UU asks us to live out our UU principles within a living tradition of wisdom and spirituality, drawn from sources as diverse as science, poetry, scripture, personal experience, and personal expertise. And I'd add law and the world of courts to that. I try to keep compassion in all my dealings, and I would hope that you do the same. I try to heed Gibran's advice to look upon all deeds in the fullness of the light. I try to weigh and understand the full consequences of my judgments. The wicked and the weak cannot fall lower than the lowest which is in you also. Gibran calls it standing and passing judgment while in the twilight. And I would encourage you to stay that. Try your best is a way to recognize the smallest part of yourself, and also to recognize the light that is your God self.
As Sue Chambers extinguishes the sanctuary chalice, please extinguish your chalice at home and say the words with me. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.